You know what the best trade in NBA history would be?
What?
Scottie Barnes for Jalen Suggs.
Bruh.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new episode of the DE Podcast. I'm here with Shriyam, and I'm here with EKAMRESH, who's not on the podcast that much. So today we're going to be talking about the NBA. We'll be talking about the Summer League, some more free agency stuff. We'll have a little bit of some questions at the end and our own opinions. So Cade Cunningham impressed us last night. He was 7 for 10 from three-point range. And I guess we should start on touching base on the Summer League. So one thing that's not as important is that the Raptors beat the Rockets by 16, but Scottie Barnes had 8 points. He had 0 points, 0 rebounds, and 0 assists at halftime. So even though Jalen Green played well, the Raptors still closed them out. I don't know if you guys watched that game. What do you guys think about that?
I didn't watch the game, but I got a text from you. You were like, "Oh my God, Scottie Barnes! He has 0 points, 0 rebounds, 0 assists at halftime," and with 2 exclamation marks. And all I gotta say is, Daniel, you're just overreacting to everything about Scottie Barnes. Okay, if he has a good game, you're just like, okay, he just had a good game. But if he does anything bad, you're just like, oh my God, why did we draft him? Blah blah blah. Blah. Yeah, I get it. Jalen Suggs should have been drafted, but you still have to give him a chance. You never know. He might be really good for the team.
I remember when Scottie Barnes drafted, Daniel sent me a video of him reacting to it, and he was so sad. But I guess that game also wore out Jalen Green because now it looks like he's gone for the rest of the summer league. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I posted it on our Instagram too. I mean, it was so funny because I was like, please just draft Jalen Suggs. It's so obvious. They already drafted Jalen Green, Cade Cunningham, and Devon Mobley. It's so obvious. And then I heard Scottie Barnes, and I didn't even know who that was. And I'm like, who? And, I literally said, who, after they drafted him. So, I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm still upset about it. I keep saying it in every single podcast, but I'm still upset about it. But, yeah, I mean, Jalen Green is out for the rest of the summer league with hamstring tightness. In my opinion, I don't think it's going to affect the season. I think he needs rest. I mean, he's come out in his first few games, and he's shown what kind of player he can be. He's been playing very well, averaging a lot of points, lots of rebounds. I think he's going to be obviously an asset to the Rockets. I don't see why not. He would be a candidate for Rookie of the Year. So it'll be very exciting to see how he performs. He's averaging 20.3 points per game, which is good for the Summer League. It's a shame that he wouldn't be able to go and try to win it and get the MVP. But we'll definitely see what happens there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think really. I think he's been the best player in the summer league through the 2 games, and I think that just being out of the summer league isn't going to hurt anything. Just more precautions, more rest for him. And he needs to get used to this type of play because during the season, it's an 82-game season. It's very rigorous, lots of chances for injuries. So I think he'll do well.
Yeah, even though he only played these 3 games, it looks like that the summer league is really just about so the team knows how you can play against pretty much NBA talent. I mean, a lot of G League guys, but they are up to a similar level, you know what I mean, of these professional players in the NBA. So it's really an opportunity to get used to it because it's obviously a whole new game, way different than college. So it's like an introduction to the NBA, and I think at least he got a little bit of that. But I think at least from these games, we have a snapshot of what he's going to be.
Yeah, for sure. So then the first pick, Cade Cunningham, he actually did well last game. Shot 7 for 10 from three-point range. Had a great game. I mean, it's similar to Jalen Green, except there's no injury. I think the Pistons are high contenders to win the Summer League. And Cade Cunningham, if they were to win, would obviously be the MVP. So, I mean, what do you guys think about it? What do you guys think? How do you guys think he will impact the NBA with his performances? Is his strength three-point shooting? Is it jump shots, layups, defense, so on?
Well, I mean, he kind of has it all, and we already kind of knew that coming to the draft. This is he's number 1 overall pick. He's looking like he's going to be that franchise cornerstone for the Pistons. gonna be their anchor. He's gonna be their main guy. And yeah, he had a rough first game, even rough first 2 games, kind of. But I mean, last night he just went absolutely crazy. Shot 57% from the field. He played really well. He's a good 3-point shooter. He can get to the rim pretty well. And I think I just see continue to develop. It's him and Jalen Green are going to be so fun to watch throughout just their NBA careers.
Yeah, I think those 2 guys will be the candidates for Rookie of the Year, in my opinion. And then the third person is questionable. I mean, Jalen Suggs and Yvonne Mobley and Scottie Barnes, they're the next 3 draft picks, but they have the higher chances of getting there. I mean, I think it's just going to determine who has a better performance with their team. I think that if the Pistons suck and the Rockets actually, like maybe not make the playoffs, but if the Rockets start improving, then I think they might give it to Jalen Green. But if the Pistons improve and the Rockets suck, then yeah. But I think the Rockets have better potential because you still have John Wall. Jalen Green will probably join the starting lineup unless they put Kevin Porter Jr.
No, he would definitely start.
Yeah, definitely starting. They'll have Kevin Porter Jr., Christian Wood. It's right now it's shaped up to be a good lineup. I'm not sure where they'll go this season, but I think I think in the coming years they'll be a good team, a playoff team.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I personally think I'm actually on the opposite side. I think that the Pistons will be better than the Rockets this season, just because the Rockets are in the Western Conference, Pistons are in the East. Because the West is I think it's going to be another extremely brutal year in the West. There's just going to be, outside of the 10 playoff teams, quote unquote, the 10 playoff teams, I think there's going to be just so much depth in the West. You have the Lakers, Suns, Warriors on top, and then even some of the lower level teams like the Mavericks and who else am I thinking of? Even teams like the Kings, they actually look like they can be kind of scary. Even the Kings, Pelicans, and I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs, but I definitely think that they'll be good as 10 seeds or even 11 seeds. So I think the Rockets will kind of have a hard time getting many wins. Meanwhile, the Pistons, who are in the weaker East, I think they could easily find themselves as like the 10th seed, and that would be good enough to get Cade Cunningham of the Rookie of the Year.
But think about the East too. I mean, the East has the overpowered Brooklyn Nets. They have the reigning NBA champions. They have the Bulls and the Heat, which are rising teams. Wizards look pretty trusting for next season. They have the Celtics. They have a new head coach, but we'll definitely see. The Hornets, hopefully Melo can come out and have a good season. They have the Hawks. Trae Young just made the conference finals. Off to a good start, good momentum. They have the Sixers with Joel Embiid. Hopefully not Ben Simmons, but yeah. I mean, the East is like the West. We talked about it the last podcast, where both conferences are shaped up to be so good next year. So it's almost like you don't know what's going to happen. So I think both teams have an equal chance of, doing as good as they, want to be.
Well, I don't think that the East definitely has some really good teams, right? There's the Nets, which if they're healthy, they're really scary. I mean, we saw when the 3 of them, Kyrie, Harden, and Durant, were together on the floor, they were practically unstoppable. And then obviously in the second round, there were some injuries, and that's just part of the game, right? So definitely the Bucks deserve to win the series. But as for improvement for the Rockets and the Pistons, they're 2 of the losingest teams in the league last year, at least. I mean, the Rockets, they won 17 games in the 2020-2021 season, which is, I mean, I know it was a shortened season, but only by, I don't know, 10. So, and then the Pistons had 20 wins. So I think improvement is the only way you can go. I don't think that it's possible to get much worse than how they've done. I don't even think it is possible at all to get worse. So I think there's going to be improvement because obviously they did have high draft picks, and so far their draft picks have showed a lot of promise in the summer league. So I think, as Dan was saying, it definitely is going to come down to Jalen Green and Cade Cunningham for the for the Rookie of the Year for the Rookie of the Year. So I don't know who 3 is gonna be, but it's probably contested between anywhere from like the 3 to 8 or 3 to like 7 draft picks.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's definitely gonna be a very interesting season. I'm personally really excited for a lot of these teams.
Yeah, and then
So I mean, there's a lot to look forward to. But also, I'm really interested to see how Scottie Barnes will do, and if he will prove Daniel wrong and absolutely just thrive in his role. I really want to see if that happens.
Like I'm a good person and hope that like Scottie Barnes is really good. But I think that'll be funny to see how Daniel reacts if Scottie Barnes ends up being like, I guess, a bust, you could say, or underwhelming. That'd be interesting at least to see Daniel's thoughts on that.
no. I mean, for me, Scottie Barnes, I'm not worried about his performance at all. Good player, good talent. I'm not afraid of how he's going to perform. I'm not saying he's bad because no one in the draft is bad. I mean, well, NBA wise, yeah, but like Scottie Barnes is not a bad player, but it's just because the Raptors don't need forwards right now. They need guards. They have Dragic and Van Vliet, but with Dragic, we'll touch on that later because he said something. But I don't know. The Raptors are shaped up to be an okay team this year. I mean, I think Masai Ujiri is a good guy. I think their GM has to go because I was talking to my dad like a week ago, or a week after Scottie Barnes got drafted, and he was saying like after a few years after the GM comes, he starts to have a little bit of fun. Like the GM came, he had some really good years. They got Kawhi, they got Danny Green, they got Marc Gasol. 2019 was a very successful year for them because they were able to go out, win the championship, get good players, so on and so forth. 2020, Kawhi left. I mean, nobody was mad about it. Nobody blamed anybody because Kawhi didn't want to be there. He wanted to be in LA where he grew up, and that was perfectly fine with the GM, with the fans, with everybody. Raptors had a good season, made the second round, almost made the conference finals, but fell short. But then they traded away Norman Powell, thought about trading Kyle Lowry. Then they got rid of Serge Ibaka and Marc Gasol, which I'm actually not upset about because they wanted to be somewhere else, and Marc Gasol wanted a desperate championship again or something like that. They got two centers who were okay. I mean, that was kind of expected.
Aaron Baines.
I mean, yeah, I know that was kind of expected, but like you cannot go ahead and then I mean, this offseason it was okay because first you have to manage your team, like 3 guards in the whole team, and got rid of Aaron Baines, got rid of Paul Watson Jr., got rid of DeAndre Bembry. Good moves. And got rid of Rodney Hood, and then got Sam Decker. I mean, I was talking to my dad about it. He was saying that like you never know. Like he wasn't obviously too good in the NBA, but he thought like, what if in Europe he learned something new, and then he's going to come back with the NBA with more knowledge, better playmaking. We signed a guy from Europe who's supposed to be really good. We signed Goran Dragic and Precious Achiuwa, which is good especially for Kyle Lowry. I mean, that's actually pretty good. Because Precious Achiuwa is a young center, even though we have like a ton of forwards. Like at least we have good forwards. I want Precious Achiuwa to start over Khem Birch. I really want that to happen so bad. Because Precious Achiuwa is young. He needs the minutes. He's hungry. He needs something new. He played well with Nigeria in the Olympics. He needs to be there in the moment. Khem Birch, like the guy is like okay. I mean, he got re-signed for a 3-year, $20 million deal, but I don't think he deserves to be there. I think he deserves to be in Europe somewhere because based on his playmaking, based on the rebounds, which is a necessity by a center, you can't have that on an NBA team, especially one that is desperate. So yeah, that's my summary about it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how the Raptors do. So I guess speaking of just moves, I guess we'll move on to all the free agency news. There was actually a lot of free agency news, even though it's been about a week since we started, and things have definitely cooled down since the beginning. But there were a lot of important deals. I guess I'll start with the most important, in my opinion, which was Kawhi re-signed for a 4-year, $176 million deal.
With the Raptors. Oh wait,
With,
no,
with,
no, I'm kidding.
not with the And most interesting things about this is I read a report that said that Kawhi actually kind of lost money on this because if he signed for another just a 1-year deal with the Clippers like he's been doing, then in the summer of 2022 he would have been eligible for a supermax contract where he would get $250 million. So he basically lost out on $80 million. And I'm just wondering why he did that, honestly.
I mean, I don't know much about it. I mean, I just saw that he re-signed. I knew about the part where the 1 year and then he could get the supermax. I mean, maybe Kawhi wanted to stay. I think, does the 4th year have a player option? Do you know that?
I'm not sure, actually.
But I mean, 4 years instead of 6 years. I mean, the 1 year deal would have been smart because what if the team didn't do well and Kawhi wanted to leave and then he didn't. But 4 years, I mean, he wanted to stay. I mean, I don't know.
I think he wants to stay because it's his home, honestly.
Yeah. And something similar to Westbrook because Westbrook came to LA, it's home. Hopefully he doesn't have to shoot 60% from the free throw line so he can just go. But yeah. I mean, yeah, I think with Kawhi, he just wants to be at home.
I didn't hear that much about the trade. I saw those few details, but honestly, I mean, if someone wants to sign for 4 years, it obviously means they have hope in the team. Well, if a star, if they re-sign with the team for, usually like longer term, at least they have hope in the team that it's going to do something well. And I mean, obviously, the last 2 playoff appearances for the Clippers were pretty underwhelming. Especially with Paul George, who choked way too much. But I mean, I guess he feels that like maybe if Paul can overcome these things and if they can work better, then hopefully they can. Because on paper that team looks really scary, right? When you just read those names, but then when you watch them play and their results, the last 2 seasons, you don't think that that's the same team that you just.
Well, yeah, I agree for the bubble season, but they were injured.
Yeah, like to be fair, they didn't have Kawhi, and then they made it to the conference finals, almost made it to the finals.
Yeah, they won 2 games against the Suns. Like, that was impressive.
What I'm saying is, it's still, I guess, is considered underwhelming, especially with the expectations. But yeah, it was injuries. Same thing with the Nets injuries. But I think, obviously, in the beginning of the season, there were higher expectations for where they would end up. And I guess, this season just happened to be lots of injuries. I don't know, I guess maybe because of the shorter season or, play-in, not the play-in, but, just short.
Mainly because there was a short off season, I think that was
but still, just in general, injuries or no injuries is still a little bit underwhelming for their performance. But I guess, as I was saying, he does see some hope that they can do it because the West is going to be really strong next year. I mean, you have the Lakers. And then I guess you also have the Clippers. So I think next season is going to be pretty interesting in terms of because of all these free agency moves, which I guess most of the big ones happened last week, but there's a few this week.
I mean, this free agency is really strong this year, so it's going to be exciting for next season.
Yeah, actually, one final thing about Kawhi. I think one of the reasons why he might have just had done this like simpler deal is because he might have been a little bit he might have been scared that the Clippers wouldn't offer him like the money he wanted, if that kind of makes sense. Because he is coming off an injury.
Yeah.
And you never know. Like, what if you never he's already, I think, 31 or 32, and you never know. Like, you might not be able to get back into it fully. So I think he signed the safe deal basically, just to make sure, just to guarantee that he's going to be okay for the next few years.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So in other free agency news, well, we already covered this one. Jimmy Butler re-signed with the Heat on a 4-year, $184 million deal. think we already talked about this on a previous podcast, but that was a good move by the Heat. They're just strengthening their core. They obviously brought in Kyle Lowry and signed a bunch of other additions like PJ Tucker, and they're just going to continue to try and compete. Other interesting things. Kyle Korver is joining the Nets. Luckily, it's not as a play. He's only doing a player development coach. But the Nets just keep getting all these names. It's just so insane.
I mean, I don't remember too much about him, but I just remember back in, I don't think he wasn't on the Cleveland championship team, but I think he was there right after, 2017, 2018.
Yeah.
He was, throughout his career, he was a really good three-point shooter. I think he was also an all-star for a few years. I know 2015, I think he was an all-star, on Atlanta, or not Atlanta, I don't know, some team.
Yeah.
He was averaging 20 a game, so he was really solid at one point. But he definitely has a pretty good three-point skill set. And he was consistent his entire career, which is pretty long. I think 15 years probably. Maybe 13, I don't know.
He was an all-star averaging 9 points per game, actually.
Then he was obviously a reserve. I thought he averaged 20 points a game. I don't know why.
No, he was just a shooter, but I mean, that's pretty impressive still that you got an all-star.
Most impressive
under 10.
game with 9 points. Oh my god.
Yeah. And then one other, well, not one other, there's still a lot, but one thing that I thought was important is Andre Iguodala is back with the Warriors. He is reunited. It's Curry, Thompson, Green, Iguodala, and it looks like Andrew Wiggins will be the new Harrison Barnes going into that. So everyone's kind of thinking that they're going to be like that 2016 NBA team. I don't think it'll be the record, but I think that it'll be somewhere playmaking. I mean, I think the chemistry is already there, especially with Clay and Steph, and then Andre and Steph and Clay and Draymond. And Andre Wiggins has something with Draymond and Steph already. So I'm very excited for it. I think, they got rid of Kelly Oubre Jr., who went to Charlotte, but I think it was a good move by the Warriors. They got back Andre, which I think was very important because Andre Iguodala was a huge part in their championship team. He actually won Finals MVP in 2015. That was a little bit rigged, but in 2019 he had a huge game winner in Game 2 against the Raptors. I totally didn't cry after that. And then he had a good season with Miami. I was laughing in 2020 when they made the finals. He was like, "Oh wait, Andre Iguodala must be so happy he made the finals the last 6 years." 2015, 17, 18, 19, and 20. So I was like, yeah, he should move. He's probably happy. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's nice. It's nice because honestly, he definitely deserves to have his jersey retired by the Warriors. So it's kind of nice. I think he's gonna probably retire in the next 2 or 3 seasons, maybe even less, maybe next season. So I think ending with the Warriors is definitely a good thing.
Yep. I mean, hopefully, I want him to end this season. I think the Warriors need to retire his number. I think without him, I feel like they might have won a championship, but I think that he was a strong impact, and I think without him, it would be hard. Because he was their big bench player.
I agree.
So next we can go on to Reggie Jackson. He re-signed with the LA Clippers for 2 more years. So like Shriram was saying before, the Clippers have a good lineup. Everyone looks pretty dangerous out there. Reggie Jackson was a huge part in the playoffs last year without Kawhi. So I think that it was a good move by LA. I didn't see too much on them trading anybody, which I think that it would be cool if LA got somebody. But we'll have to just see what happens there.
Yeah. Obviously, I mean, I don't know. I think it's just a good re-signing. He really played his heart out in the postseason. Just nice to see another guy, get money for playing well.
Yeah, and he shows it because he was crying after they lost. He really wanted it. So
he wanted that, yeah.
Yeah, so it's great that he can stay on the team and hopefully be better next year. Next we can move on to the GOAT. Udonis Haslem has returned to the Miami Heat for another year where he doesn't play at all and he still gets paid $2.5 million. I mean, I can't really speculate on that much because I mean, he's like, he gives them advice. Obviously, he was on their championship team with LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. So I think he would give the young guys really good advice. I mean, you saw him in the bubble when they made the finals. He was like there in the huddles, just telling them what to do. So I think Udonis is giving them good advice. I mean, the fact that he's getting paid like almost $3 million to do that is kind of like okay, but yeah, I think that it's good for Udonis.
I mean, it's good. I don't know how long he's playing in the NBA. 2026 has him re-signed again or something. No, but I mean, I guess he's supposed to be good for nurturing the young players, which the Heat has a lot of, young talent. So I mean, I guess that's the role he plays. But I mean, he wasn't. I guess he was never exceptional in his career, but he was there, right? 2006 with Shaq and Wade, and he was there for the two championships that I guess they thought were going to be like 7, but he was there. But yeah, now he's old. I guess he's 41. He's probably like, if not the oldest NBA player right now, he's probably one of the oldest. I don't really know about that. But I mean, I guess $3 million for just like sitting on the bench and getting free tickets to NBA games. I take it.
Yeah, free tickets there we go.
Yeah, I think it's more like he's just obviously another guy who's gonna get his jersey retired. So it's just like a nice thing, finally to kind of like, yeah, we'll just keep you on the team because you've been here so long and you've just been a contributor and yeah.
So one more D we have is Elfrid Payton. Played on the Pelicans. He got a 1-year deal with the Phoenix Suns. He's gonna bring the shooting down to the Valley. Chris Paul is there, and then his backup will probably be Cameron Payne, and then Elfrid Payton might be backup for Devin Booker. But yeah, I think that it's a good deal for Phoenix.
Yeah, I think it's just another guy. Elfrid Payton never really lived up to like the expectations, but I think he's just a solid NBA player. He wasn't that great with the Knicks last season, not 2021, but the year before that. And so we'll just see. I don't think that's that big a deal. I think Cameron Payne's still going to be like the main guy for that bench unit, who obviously in the playoffs he just shot super well. He even took the role of Chris Paul when Chris Paul was out with COVID. I think that's more Cameron Payne getting re-signed was more important than Elfrid Payton coming.
I mean, Elfrid had a pretty solid career. Like, if I'm looking like 11 points a game, I guess. I mean, I think he was supposed to be averaging more than that. I think he was drafted. He was a pretty high pick. He was like 10, but maybe 9, something like that. But all I remember him for is his hair. He was like really long and tall. That's the only thing I remember him for. He hasn't really made, I don't think, a really big impact on any team.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So for the last player deal, we have Thanasis Antetokounmpo. He re-signed on a 2-year deal with Milwaukee. He played 57 games this year with Milwaukee. He's not like their star player or anything like that. I think it's good that Giannis and Thanasis are on the same team. I think they can both feel more comfortable with each other. So, yeah, that's my thought.
Yeah, it's just it was just a signing because obviously Giannis is their main guy. It's because, and this is not like an insult to Thanasis or anything. It's just like he doesn't really play that much. He plays about 10 minutes a game. He averages 3 points per game.
Okay, guys, let's touch more on James Borrego. So he was the Charlotte coach. He signed a multi-year extension. I saw that. I think it's great for the Hornets because he looked like he was very committed. He wanted to help out LaMelo Ball and just his game. He wanted LaMelo to be great. He wanted the team to be great. So I'm really happy that they signed him, and hopefully Charlotte can be one of those good teams again.
Yeah, I mean, he used to be an assistant coach for the Spurs, so he comes from the Greg Popovich system, which is obviously very successful, and he's a good coach for that reason. But I think it's a good signing. I think it's nice, but I think what we need to see from Charlotte in general is we need to see them start to get out of like this mediocre area, because for the past forever, I don't know how many years, they've always just been stuck in the space where in between not the 8th seed, but not the 12th seed. Like they've never been good enough. They've always just been in that middle, and that's literally the worst spot to be in the NBA. So hopefully they can just get out of it and really start to, become elite with LaMelo, with their coach, with their young talent like Miles Bridges, PJ Washington, etc.
I think that Charlotte's been bad consistently longer than like any other team. I mean, like
The Kings, though, the Kings. You can't.
I mean, no, the Kings were good in the early 2000s.
But not for the past 20 years, the Kings have been bad.
The
Well,
Hornets were good, and the
Hornets,
Hornets made the playoffs in 2016.
The Hornets were good in the 90s.
that's what I was about to say. The Hornets were good in the 90s. They had, like, I think some good guys. I know Del Curry was once there, so very sad. But, yeah, and then when they had Kemba Walker, they were doing, like, I know it was, like, Kemba Walker, Jeremy Lin, like, around then. They were doing pretty good, 2015, 2016. They might have even made the second round once or something, maybe. But they were pretty decent then. But, yeah, I guess the Kings only. They haven't been good since, like, the early 2000s. But I think they should have won the title in 2002 because that was so rigged. That was completely rigged. I think they should have won the series.
Yeah, I think they should have won that. So we have a few more things for today. So before we have a few questions, let's go on to two more things that I actually wanted to touch on. You guys probably saw it. I know you guys definitely saw one of them. I don't know about the other, but I'll start on the one that I wanted to talk about a little bit. So it's more about social media purposes where Goran Dragic, a couple days after he got traded to Toronto, he said that he doesn't want to be in Toronto, doesn't like it. And then he actually apologized about a week ago and says that Toronto is a great franchise and a great organization and that he wants to play for it. So I was kind of thinking in my head, does Goran actually, did he do research and now he wants to be there? Or does he just want to make the fans and the audience feel like he's fine being in Toronto?
I don't know. What they say first is what they mean. He said it, like, impulsively, he said it. Like, he said it without thinking about what it would mean by saying that, but he said it because it's what he probably truly believed. And then he realized that it was a mistake to say what he truly believed. So then he took it back and said Toronto's a great city. I don't think he did any research. He just doesn't want to be there. It's just like, I mean, I remember Kawhi didn't want to be in Toronto either. I guess it's just like people don't want to be there. I don't know why. I mean, maybe because it's not in the United States, they just don't want to go to Toronto. They just feel like, this is outside of the U.S. We're in Canada. I want to be here. I want to be closer to, like, I guess you could say the action. I don't know, but in the United States. Yeah. But yeah, he definitely didn't do any research or, like, walk around and see, oh wow, there's so many great restaurants here. Maybe I should stay here or something. No, he doesn't want to be in Toronto, and he's just trying to cover it up.
Yeah. Well, he probably didn't even have a house in Toronto yet. I don't think he's.
No way.
Like he just got traded a week ago. There's no way he already packed his bags and got over there. It's like, I'm ready to play.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how do you feel, Daniel? This guy just insulted your city.
Well, I mean, that's nothing bad about Goran. I'm just like, bro, you know who we should draft? I have like a name in mind. I don't think you guys know who he is. Do you know this guy?
We can't.
Jalen Suggs?
Yeah, I don't know. Do you guys know who that is?
Sounds familiar. I feel like you've mentioned him a few times.
Yeah, I mean, dang. Like, if we just drafted Jalen Suggs, then I wouldn't have a problem with Goran Dragic saying that he doesn't want to be in Toronto. Now I'm like, bro, like, if Goran Dragic leaves, we have nobody. We have no guards except for Fred VanVleet, who's a good player and all, but we don't have anybody else other than Fred VanVleet. So, like, then we're doomed.
Is that the guy who's better?
OG Anunoby can run point guard. Or Siakam.
Now put Kem Burch as point guard. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. So one more thing we have is Damian Lillard. It's going pretty viral. So there was a random fan that tweeted, "How much y'all want to bet that before the NBA season starts, the Lakers will still get Damian Lillard? LOL." And Damian Lillard responded, "Bet $1 million." So is Damian Lillard doing that just to troll the internet, or is he doing it because he's actually considering going to LA, and LA somehow still has the money to acquire him?
Well, I think basically what he's saying here is bet $1 million because you're about to lose $1 million. He's trying to get the guy to lose $1 million. I think that's what he's saying basically.
Well, but usually when you say that, you mean it like you should bet all this money because you'll get rich if you bet on this. You should.
Yeah, but I think it's like the opposite this time, where he's like, no, I want you to bet the money, but I'm not.
Going to end up in LA. But usually when you say that, you don't mean it the opposite way. You mean it that you should bet on it because you should bet this much because you'll make you'll get this much by betting on it because it's just sure thing. But I don't think I'm gonna go to LA.
Well, I mean, think about it. There's no way Lillard to LA can even work now because, first of all, salary issues, and then even more important than that, they just traded for Russell Westbrook. How many point guards do you need? How many?
Yeah, you have Westbrook, Kendrick Nunn, Malik Monk. LeBron James is a point guard.
Yeah, Russell Westbrook and Damian Lillard would just be completely overdoing it, in my opinion.
Just think about it: Damian Lillard, Russell Westbrook, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Carmelo Anthony.
Well, Carmelo is not even close to those people's levels. He's
Yeah, Carmelo's kind of he's in his ending stages of his career. He literally said that this was his time to win the championship.
Of course, yeah. It's his one chance to win a ring.
Yeah, it's probably his final chance because I think he's definitely heading out very soon.
All right. So for the final thing today, there's no general questions. We'll have the trivia. It's not really trivia, but it's just opinions. So we have 4 questions, and I guess I'll go first, and maybe EKAMRESH can go second, Shin can go third. So our opinion on it. So number 1, is DeAndre Ayton a bust? So I'm going to speak. So, I mean, for the first year, I kind of wasn't trusting it because I was like, bro, he's not really, playing well. But I think he was actually not playing bad. His team just wasn't playing well. But I think this season we got a glimpse on him, and I don't think he's a bust. I think he's a great player. There may be players in that draft class who are better than him, but I think he still deserved to be number 1.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's kind of like in the 1984 draft when Hakeem was drafted number 1, MJ was drafted number 3, and I was like, oh my God, nobody really complains that Hakeem was drafted number 1 because he's still a great, he's still all time, probably top 12 player all time. There's no complaints. That's exactly what you want out of a number 1 pick. It just happened that the greatest player of all time, or in my opinion, the second greatest player of all time, got drafted at number 3.
Who's number 1 of all time?
His name ends with the James. His name reminds.
There's no way. He's not number 1.
Okay, well, that's gonna go too much into a different.
Well, let's do the GOAT discussion in the next podcast. I'll even write it down.
Honestly.
What is the GOAT discussion in the next podcast?
I disagree with you guys though. DeAndre Ayton, he's pretty solid. I mean, his rebounding is good, and at least when I was watching the finals, it seemed like he was always making an impact somewhere. Especially, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it just seemed like in the closing minutes, he was also pretty solid in a lot of those games against the.
Yeah, but I think the main thing in the playoffs, this year at least, he had his best season, and he definitely benefited from having Chris Paul, because Chris Paul was just feeding everything to him. It was so good for him to have Chris Paul on that team. I mean,
as far as maybe scoring more points, but rebounding is good. So.
Yeah. I think he's just going to continue to get better. He literally just had arguably one of the most efficient playoffs of all time. So it's the sky's the limit.
Yeah. All right. So number 2, it's kind of a big controversial question. Well, Luka Doncic, I kind of wrote it down the wrong way. Will he be the next Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, something like that, top 10 all time? So for my answer is I don't know yet. I mean, he's impressed us in his rookie years. It's kind of similar to MJ. Just think about it, right? Because MJ, he started out, his team made the playoffs. They kept losing first round. They made it to second round one time. They lost. It's like Luka, right? He came, okay team. He was the hope to make the team a better franchise. Led them to the playoffs. They kept losing in the first round these past like 2 years or 3 years, whatever it was. It's similar to Michael Jordan's story, but I don't know about Luka. I mean, to win 6 rings in the current NBA is kind of hard, but especially because all these old guys are gonna like LeBron, like Luka's young. Don't forget about that. Like LeBron, Curry, Durant, they're gonna be leaving soon. Like Curry and Durant are both like 33 years old. They're getting pretty old. LeBron is like 69 years old. Like he's old. So he's gonna lead the NBA at some point. So I think that with Luka, it's just gonna depend on how his team can do, and he needs like MJ and Scottie Pippen. Like Luka needs a Scottie Pippen on his team right now.
Yeah, and the Mavericks hasn't really done anything to get him Scottie Pippen yet, which is.
I mean, like, as for the question, like, no, Luka will never be, like, considered on the level of Michael Jordan because there's always going to be, like, this thing where people who grew up watching Michael Jordan are going to be like, oh, well, I grew up, he was the best. It's just, like, something about he played, back then, like, as you would refer to, back then, that always just makes some type of legacy thing. But, I mean, I think Luka has potential to be, like, not a great player, but someone who's going to be considered, like, I guess in 30 years, or maybe like even 40 years a little bit after he retires, or maybe he can be like LeBron during his career as one of the greatest players of all time. I mean, but like when you're saying trying to win 6 championships in the league, I don't think there's going to be 3-peats or, even two championships in a row as much anymore because the talent in the league is so much more widespread than I guess it ever was. You have talent on every single team. High caliber players on every single team. So I think and that actually makes the NBA more interesting, right? There's more. You have to guess who's gonna win. Like maybe people weren't really thinking the Bucks or the Suns were gonna win the title, or make the finals, but that's what ended up happening, and it was actually really interesting. And the Hawks making the conference finals, and that I think actually made the season even more interesting than maybe we would have imagined.
Yeah, I agree. I think the reason why that happened, like, oh my God, why is there so much widespread talent? I think it's definitely because of free agency and how players just control what they do now. It's the saying is it's a players' league, and I definitely agree with that because now pretty much everybody can decide where they want to go. Even role players have a lot of leverage. Maybe not the lower end ones who are struggling to find deals, but definitely higher end role players that are 3-point shooters or can defend well. They definitely have leverage on where they want to go and what deals they can make, and that point right there just makes it so that you're going to have more people on more teams and just more widespread talent overall.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more independence. The team can't control its players anymore. If a player wants out, like I think it has something to do with maybe even social media somewhat. Like when a player says I want out, it's gonna go everywhere. Everyone's gonna hear about it. And if the team doesn't, try to accommodate that, let them go or something, then it's also gonna look bad on them. So I think a lot of it, yeah, there's free agency, but I think a lot of it has also come on with like the media, how widespread everything is. In just a few hours, millions of people can hear about everything that went down. And now you have like these reporters who get every single detail. It's scary how many details they get on each and every move in the NBA. So, yeah.
Yeah, that brings us to the last question of the day. Will the Suns or Bucks go back to the finals next year? Bucks? No. Suns? Possibly.
Suns possibly?
For the Bucks, if the Nets are injured, yeah, of course they have a really good chance. But then they have to deal with the Bulls and the Heat. So I don't really think so. But with Phoenix, I mean, it just depends on, it depends on like, how the other teams are going to do, because they have Lakers, Clippers, Jazz, blah, 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 blah. I don't know, because I think with Phoenix, I mean, they definitely have a better chance. But I think Phoenix could. I mean, they just have to play well. If Devin Booker has another like breakout season, it's possible.
For me, Phoenix, no, because of just how strong the Western Conference is definitely going to be next season. We already kind of talked about this. And then the Bucks, they have a better chance than Phoenix, but I'm going to say no because I think the Nets will be healthy next year and won't have all these freak injuries like they had, and that will allow them to get to the finals.
Yeah, I don't think either of the Suns or the Bucks are gonna make it. I think I agree with EKAMRESH. The Bucks have a higher chance than the Suns. I mean, like Chris Paul, extending. I guess that was pretty old, but Chris Paul extending. I guess it's really I don't see any more championship berths in them. But I mean, I can see them being solid. Maybe a conference final or two in the next 4 years. But I don't think they're gonna win a championship. Especially with how strong the teams are and how strong the teams, from what we know right now, are projected to be for the next 3 or 4 years. So it'll be interesting. I think this season's just going to be like last season. It's going to be interesting. I don't think there's not going to be as many injuries. It's a pretty similar length off season this year, but it's still going to be interesting with the free agency that happened and where we left off from last year with the seeding and how everyone did last year. There's new expectations, I'd say, for every team. The Bulls, now, as Dan was saying, he seems to also have lots of hope in them. They last year, they were completely ruled out of getting anywhere. But this year, their expectations are new. They have all these good players, DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Vucevic. So I think they're one of those teams that have way higher expectations than before, and they're going to be fighting hard to actually achieve something this season.
Yeah. Well, everybody, that is it for the podcast. It's all on YouTube, so if you're listening on YouTube right now, thank you so much. We'll be posting everything on Spotify shortly. On Instagram, it's just going to be short videos. For the podcast, it's on YouTube just because it's more professional and just because that's where all podcasts are. So with that being said, everybody, me, EKAMRESH, and Shrim will see you guys next time.